Hey there everyone, welcome to another live stream. We've reached the last day of September, so we're doing our live stream, which is about strategies for getting helpful feedback from your students. So if this is your first time here, I'm Erica Romero. I got my PhD in English this past year, and I've been teaching college courses, English, so composition, writing, literature courses for the past 6 years. And so on Ever Educating, I basically share advice for teaching. So teaching tools, resources, activity ideas, ethic tutorials. There's tons of video content on my channel. And I also have a blog as well, evereducating.com, same as my channel name, where I also post about teaching advice. And so this year, one of my resolutions was to do a live stream every month. And so here we are. Tomorrow's video will actually be about my Q3 accountability post of how I'm doing on achieving my goals for the year. But yeah, today we're talking about strategies for getting helpful student feedback. So if you're new to teaching or if you're doing it for a while, but you're not getting what you want from your students as far as like, well, how do I improve my teaching? Hopefully these strategies can help. I'm going to go over 4 different strategies that I use, and then I have a couple suggestions for other ones that I haven't done before, but I do think could work well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to start here with the first strategy. And so this one's pretty formative. So it's something that you would do throughout the semester, any given week that you want, any given class period that you want. And it's giving students exit cards in order to answer questions about either the class content or the teaching strategy that you use during that particular class period or week. So these are exit card templates from my HighFlex collection. So I have a collection of 11 activity ideas if you're teaching HighFlex that I've linked below. But part of that is these templates. And so basically what you're doing here is you're either going to have students write this down by hand on index card, or you can use something like Pear Deck in order to get anonymous or written feedback from students on how the class is going. And so in this case, for example, what aspect of today's class confused you the most? And so by using these exit cards, you can get a sense of what went well and what went poorly. And so sometimes you decide what you want to actually say in these cards. So here's another example, right? What aspect interested you the most? So you might have, okay, well, of my 30 students, 20 of them found this thing very confusing. That's important to know because then in the next class period, you can do a different activity about the same concept, or you can just reiterate what you said, maybe lecture again. And so you know what are the room, where is there room for improvement? And what's going really well, and you can kind of move past it because everybody's like, yeah, I understand what this means. We don't have to cover it again. And so you can do like short answer in this case, right? So what aspect? But you can also do like numerical questions. So from 1 to 5, 1 being confused, 5 being confident, how do you feel about writing an argumentative thesis statement for your next paper, right? And so you get a lot of 1s, there's still a lot of confusion. Well, then you can keep doing more activities based off that. Maybe create a little guide for them, a little video, whatever the case may be. So this is something you can use at any point in the semester to get really quick feedback from your students about how something is going so you can shift your teaching accordingly. So, because usually you do the course evals at the end of the semester, and that's very numerical. Some students comment, most students don't. It's too late. The semester's over. So in this case, you can start this week 1 if you wanted to. Or you can do it maybe once a week, once every other week, once a month, up to you to decide. And so again, index cards for written ones, but I recommend just doing it digitally. And so if you want to have short answer responses, again, Pear Deck can work well. If you want to do multiple choice questions, then you can use Kahoot as well for this if you want to. Because those are both free to use and very easy to use for students. They don't need accounts in order to use those tools. So that's one strategy, exit cards. The next strategy is one that you would do mid-semester, and it's called the midterm chat. So I have a blog post about this. I have a video or 2 about this. They're all linked below. But what you do here, so this is based off of the CTLT at ISU, where I tended to get my PhD. They had this tool, this resource, and I use it all the time to get feedback from my students on how the semester was going midway through, so we can change gears if we needed to at the halfway point before evals came at the end of the semester. And so I described what it happens in it here. Again, I have video as well. But at the bottom here, I have the 4 questions. So basically, this is usually facilitated by somebody else. In this case, someone from CTLT will come and facilitate this discussion with my students. But you can have someone, a friend, a coworker, do it for you, or you could do it yourself, though of course there's the less anonymous aspect to it. In that case, so students might be a bit wary of answering the questions as honestly as you would want. But the 4 questions, the first one is, what aspects of this course help you to learn? So in this case, it's basically what elements of your teaching style are working well for your students. And so you can get some answers here. Here's some responses I've received, right? So having PowerPoint on the LMS is helpful because I can click on it whenever I want to. Being mostly discussions rather than super lecture heavy. Being willing to meet outside of class and outside office hours. So you can get a sense of what do your students see as really helpful for their learning when they're answering this question. But then it's what aspects of this course inhibit your learning. Okay, so now in this case, it's what's going wrong? What are they worried about? What are they not enjoying? What are they confused by? And you're not always going to get a consensus, right? So some students might feel one way and then other students feel the exact opposite. I've been part of a midterm chat where I was a student and I was astonished by how different our perspectives were on the same aspects of the class. So in this case, too much reading at too fast a pace was the most common response I got in my literature courses. But of course, to an extent, I can't really change the reading list that much based on this response because it's an English course. You're supposed to have a certain amount of required reading that you do. But knowing it, I went from one semester to the other rather than reading the whole book before we start discussing it, we read it in halves. So half done by Tuesday, half done on Thursday. So I took their advice for future semesters, but unless it was like, oh my God, it's overwhelming, and they told me, yes, everybody feels like there's too much. Okay, maybe if you do like short stories and you had a lot of them, you can cut some of them out, right? Maybe get rid of a novel if it's not that important, so you can do this. But sometimes just like, you know what, like we have to stick to this because it's supposed to be a course where we cover every type of genre that we've stated that we're going to be covering, and all these novels are needed in order to meet that objective. So you can say, yes, I can change this. No, I can't change this based off of the answers to this question, right? So then not enough guidance when reading the novels for homework. In that case, I'm like, okay, sure, you want some guidance? And I started giving them like concept maps. Consider these terms, consider these concepts when you're reading this particular novel, when you're reading this particular section, because we're going to be discussing it in class next class period, right? And so not enough visuals in the PowerPoints, too much text. Okay, good to know. I changed up that style as well. So sometimes you can change, sometimes you can't, but at least you know what students are thinking about your teaching style as far as problems that they're having. And what suggestions can you offer that would enhance your learning in this course, right? So in this case, what do you think I can do, right, in order to help them learn? So in this case, what are we adding, right? So maybe a reading guide for each novel, okay? So I didn't do a guide, but I did the concept maps. Adding more visuals, so I did that, right? So splitting up the readings in future courses. Okay, yeah, I did that too, right? And clarifying what I expect from their assignments. Okay, I thought that was already being done because my assignments are very lengthy. The assignment sheet is very detailed, but then I have, okay, here is where I'm grading. Here's where I'm assessing. Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do the other thing? So a quick change to the assignment sheet, and that was done, right? And then finally, what can they, as students, do to improve their learning in the course, right? So it's not just what I can do as an instructor. What can they do? And so student responses, some said, okay, well, I can start reading a bit earlier rather than like the day before, okay, because it is a novel. I can, read the instructions more carefully and see if I actually just missed a detail when she said this and I was just confused, but it was there in print if I just checked for it, right? Go to office hours or set up meetings if I can't make my office hours, right? So they had the time to kind of think of, well, where are they, right? Where can they improve their approach to this course, not just me? And so 4 questions, this can take 20 minutes, it can take an hour, right? And again, you can check on your campus if there's CTLT, so Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology, or something along those lines, that offers this. But again, if not, you have the exact questions here. There's a link to the CTLT page on this blog post, and you can kind of get to it yourself or have a co-worker do it. If you don't want a co-worker doing it, then you might have a Google form where it's anonymous responses. So in that case, I will talk to them about, it's important, even though you're anonymous, so I want to know it's you, to be respectful, to be, helpful. It's a way of improving the course, right? It's not a way of just venting about everything going wrong, right? So you can try that and see how it goes, and see if you do have this resource on campus, okay? And if not, maybe ask for it. but in your department or in your center for learning. So that's midway through the semester. And then we have designing a course assessment. And so in this case, again, I have I think 2 videos on this. That was my first video ever that I ever created, so it was like terrible quality, but the content is good. I'm gonna have a more recent. And so in this case, this is at the end of the semester. I really recommend designing a course assessment to get student feedback. So you have the evals that are required, right? And again, it's like, 1 out of 10, how interested were you in this course, right? Or 1 out of 10, how available were they to you, right? So they're just like numerical stuff. In this case, I'm asking open-ended questions. Some are multiple choice, but most of them are not. And so designing this, you can design it in Google form really easily, or it can be a paper one that you have students, actually write out by hand. I think going digital if possible is better, because if you do Google form, it's all organized, it can be graphs, it's great. But it's up to you to decide what you want to ask, but there's certain elements that I think are really helpful. So if you require certain text to be read, so a textbook or novels or like may I would ask about them, right? So in this case, which required text do you feel you learn the most from? And which one do you think you learn the least from, right? So you can have that element of, do you want to use these novels again, these short stories, these textbooks? Or should you change it up based off of consensus amongst your students? Also, major assignments, okay? So is there anything specific about the design of an assignment that worked really well? Or is something that didn't work really well, right? What are your thoughts on how this assignment was designed? What are your thoughts about the group project, okay? How would you change the design of any major assignments? Okay? So asking about the work it did, the big work, is obviously very important as well, so you can tweak it in semesters to come. Then you have classwork and homework activities, okay? So again, what elements of in-class activities do you find the most beneficial for your learning? What elements did you find the least beneficial, right? Same for homework. What did you actually find benefit in, and what do you think was, superfluous, not needed? Feedback, right? So did you find my assignment feedback helpful? Was it clear? Did you wish there was something else? Did you wish I didn't do something that I did, right? What are your thoughts on how I gave feedback and the feedback that was given? And then course tools. So what elements of the LMS did you find beneficial, right? Did you actually watch my videos I created for you? Did you find the navigation very easy to use? Were the Google Docs that I made the most helpful thing about it, right? What were your thoughts on the physical things I created that I put on our LMS? And then finally, some true and false statements. These are great because they're easy to answer for students. And again, you can get some numerical data here. So for example, I would have more time should be spent going over the literary analysis terminology, right? True or false? I expected this course to be easy, and I found this course easier than I expected, right? From when I first arrived. I found this course hard, and I thought it was even harder than I expected, right? This was exactly as I thought, as far as easy or difficult or neutral, right? So getting these statements and just getting your answers and seeing, you might ask, I wish there was more, I wish there was more lecture, right? True or false? I wish there was less discussion, true or false, right? I wish there was more discussion, true or false, and so on. So this can go on forever. You can have a lot of these. I recommend not having too long an assessment, because then students are just like, my God, that's so tedious. But this is a great way of getting actually helpful feedback on how the course went. And so I do this the last day of class, right? I'm like, you know what? Let's get you thinking about the course, right? A bit of metacognitive work here. What worked? What didn't work? What would you change? Why would you change it, right? And all of that. I find this to be much more helpful than just getting the regular school evals. And so again, this is linked underneath this video for you to use as a resource, and the videos are there as well. Okay? And then finally, the fourth one is individual conferences for getting student feedback. Now, of course, this is very hard to do, maybe you cancel a class or two in order to meet individually with your students if you don't have, hundreds of them. But it can be a great way of getting all the helpful feedback, because one-on-one, they might be more open to speaking to you about their struggles, about what's going well, right? And so in this case, if you can manage to do one individual conference in a semester, I think it can be really helpful. Personally, I think it works best when you do it after the first assignment and right in the beginning of the second one, so that you can get a sense of, okay, well, how did the second one go, right? What struggles did you have? What did you think was really easy? What did you want to do more of based off that assignment? And then how's the start of assignment 2 going? Are you understanding what you have to be doing? Are you worried about something? Are you excited about something in particular? So you can have that element of like making sure they're on the right track. And during that discussion, you can also say, okay, how can this class be improved for you, right? Do you feel the lectures are clear? Do you want to have more interactivity? Do you wish there was more group work? Is it worrying you about the homework, right? And so you can speak to them one-on-one and get a sense of how they're doing in a more private space where they might be more open with you. Okay, so this can be a great strategy, but it obviously takes a lot of time, so it can be very laborious to do, but it's an option in case you want to do it. Okay, so let me go ahead and go back over here. All right, so those are 4 different strategies that you might potentially use, and again, there's videos, blog posts about all of them linked below. But then there's 2 more strategies I wanted to go over in today's video before I answer any questions you might have. And in this case, there's basically a before an assignment idea and an after an assignment idea. And so to get student feedback, potentially you can have, before an assignment is assigned, have your students come up with what the assignment is, right? Or what the requirements of the assignment are. So for example, you might have, okay, well, our first assignment is to write an argumentative research paper. That's the basic premise. But as a community, as a class, we're going to decide, is it going to be a certain topic or are you going to be free to choose, right? Are we going to be doing only academic research cited or academic and also non-academic resources? Are we going to be doing a lot of group work during this unit where we have a lot of time where you can partner up and talk about your work? Or would you rather have a lot of more individual time, right? It's going to give them these options and help them design the activity themselves. This way, hopefully, there's more buy-in and like, okay, well, I made these decisions or I helped make these decisions. I might as well actually do the work well, considering I'm the one that said, or we're the one that said that this is what we wanted, right? It wasn't just her saying, you're required to do all these things. So again, time-consuming because you do need to take class time in order to do this. But again, might be worth it for the extra buy-in. Now, I also let some instructors do like contracts. So you make a contract of what you will do and what I'll do and how an A equals this much work and a B equals this work. I have never done contract grading before. I know there's resources online in case you're interested in that. Of course, that's even more investment from your students because they're creating and signing a contract, right, to do the assignment. But for me, I would keep it simpler and just have like, okay, here's what we need to learn. Like, this is the outcome of this assignment. This is our learning outcome. And what the assignment is, it's this brief thing. It's writing this paper, okay? But from that, we're going to decide together, how long is it going to be, how is it going to be designed, what kind of activities are we going to be doing during this unit to help you achieve this goal, and so on. And you build the assignment together. So that's, pre-assignment. Could be a way of getting feedback and knowing, okay, now I know that the majority of my students said that they want to do a lot of paired work so they can have a helper through this process. Maybe you have a class that's very independent. I only have 2 who want to do that. Maybe I'll pair them up and the rest of them can do the individual work instead during these times. So that's one option as well. I haven't tried it before, but I think it can work. And then after the assignment, rather than having exit cards about a class period, right, or the midterm chat or the first assessment, you could also do after a major assignment, hey, can you reflect on the assignment a bit? Tell me what worked in the design and what didn't. So instead of waiting for the semester and the course assessment, you can ask them, very much present. Before I assign Unit 2, I want your thoughts on the design of Unit 1, so I can tweak Unit 2 accordingly. So maybe you didn't do the first idea I had of let's make this assignment together. You didn't do that. You just assigned them, hey, here's the requirements for Unit 1. But at the end of Unit 1, you might say, you know what? Now I want to hear your thoughts, right? Which elements did you find easiest to do, most difficult, most interesting, most boring, most confusing, right? And so on. And then once you have that information, you can tweak your second assignment, and then you can have, okay, class, here's assignment 2. I made these changes based off the feedback you gave me. We're going to be doing this, when you said you wanted to do this. And so you can show them, hey, I listened to what you had to say, and I made changes accordingly. And if you can't make changes, like the paper has to be 5 pages because of requirement from the university, okay, well, I couldn't take your comments about being only 3 pages because I'm required to give you 5, but, we were able to do these things. So you can tell them, this didn't happen for this reason, right? Explain to them why certain things couldn't be done and why things are the way they are based off of what they had to say. So I do find that giving student choice, a lot of student choices in the classroom helps them be more interested and engaged in the material. I have a video about that, 11 ways of giving student choice in the classroom. And I do think, I have done before where my students designed the third unit in sense of the class activities. They didn't design the assignment itself, but once I assigned it, I asked them, okay, what kind of activities do you want to do more of? We did this type of activity in unit 1, and this type in unit 2, and we did this thing and that thing. Which ones do you find most helpful? And we discussed, and they said, okay, we thought this was really helpful, definitely do that again. This is kind of pointless, really. And so they designed the classwork and homework to an extent in our third unit. So that's, I guess, a little bonus option as well of how to get student feedback and tweak your course accordingly. The more you ask your students about their needs and their wants, right, and what's bothering them, the more you can show them you care and you're willing to work with them to make class as good as it can be. And of course, that can hopefully end in some really great evals at the end of the semester, right? And so I see that there is a couple of you watching live. So if you have any comments or questions, now is the time to post them before I end this session. But to me, it's really important that students know that you're listening to them. And I think the best way to do that are exit cards, because they're quick and easy, and also the midterm chat. So out of all of these, I think the most important are listen to them throughout the semester, ask them simple questions to get a sense of how they're doing. The midterm chat is so key because you might find there's like a massive confusion or like one thing that they want, and it's easy to do. It's easy to give to them. So in the example I gave, when I had students say, like, we wish we had a guide, in our reading because we're not really sure what to focus on when we're reading these novels. Okay, well, I'm not going to create a whole major thing, but giving them, okay, well, in this particular section of the novel, consider the concept of friendship, of point of view, and metaphor. We're going to discuss that in next class at the least. I'm going to be asking you about this. And like, oh, great, thanks. So then we can focus on that, right? Don't only focus on that, but giving them at least a sense of where we're going here, they found super helpful. And that took me 5 minutes to do, right? So it wasn't very time consuming on my end, but it was very helpful on them. They appreciated it, listened, and did something about it, right? And, again, it helps that they're like, oh, well, thank you. Now I can actually feel more confident going in. I'm more willing to read knowing what I'm actually looking for when I'm doing the reading. So I do think midterm chat is super key. But again, the quick ones as well can help you design the course because you might ask in the exit card, well, here are 3 things we need to work on for this unit. Which do you think is the most confusing, right? And then once you have at least a majority stating one is, to design an activity about that the next class period, and so on and so forth. So I do think exit cards are great too, but that midterm chat is so key. Okay. All right. So I see that we have no comments. So I have a lot of videos and blog posts linked below connected to today's discussion because I've talked about this in piecemeal ways throughout my time here in Ever Educating and on my blog. And so I will be posting the usual poll in the community, asking what you want the theme for the October live stream to be. If you're not subscribed yet, I really welcome you to do so. I do have a playlist in case, again, you're new to this channel. You can get a sense of what types of videos might interest you. Are you looking for ed tech tutorials? Are you new to teaching and want some new teaching advice? Are you looking for classroom activities, right? And that's what you're focused on. Do you want tips about grading? I have a lot of playlists. I recommend checking them out and seeing what might interest you. And if you ever have suggestions of things that I should post about, and either in my blog or on my channel, you can always comment on my videos, or there's also a survey below in the description that you could click on and you can say, hey, I want to see more of this in your videos, advice on that, help with this, resources on that. I'm happy to do that as well. All right, so again, tomorrow will be a quick goals accountability video, and we'll get back to the usual teaching tips after that. So I'll see you then.